Do you desire to turn your passion into income? Connect with other creative souls who also dance to the beat of their own drum? I'm Marie-Nicole, and I'm devoted to combining beauty, uniqueness, and connection in everyday living experiences. As a creative professional and Dharma coach, I help people connect to the truth of who they are and facilitate them in embodying their uniqueness. It is my hope in this podcast that I inspire you to live your life on your terms and earn your income through being uniquely you. After all, it's the unique thread that we each contribute to the collective tapestry that creates the whole. Before going into today's podcast topic, I'd like to share some information from our sponsor, Hum Sound Therapy. Peter and Connie have been sharing their passions together for the past 9 years, developing a unique heart-based sound experience, expanding hearts into the benefits of sound and energy healing, using a variety of instruments, including crystal singing bowls, gong, Native American flute, didgeridoo, drums, chimes, and more. Peter is also a biofield practitioner, working one-on-one, in-person, and distance sessions. They are both passionate about sharing sound vibration and creating an environment where you can drop into your heart and feel, enabling a full-bodied experience. A quote from these beautiful-hearted humans themselves: "Our work is to be of service, to share our love, guide and nurture you back to your inner wisdom and reclaim your personal song through sound and energy, dropping into your heart, raising your hum of life." I can personally vouch for the truly magical and healing experiences you will receive through their sound journeys and biofield tuning sessions. So to connect with them and their offerings, visit their website and follow their journeys on social media. Links are in the show note. Thank you, Hum Sound Therapy, for sponsoring this podcast. And now for today's episode. Today's guest, Tara Winters, is an award-winning coach, money teacher, intuitive, speaker, writer, and mother of 3. Her first career as a corporate accountant saw her working in Australia and the UK for companies such as Goldman Sachs, News Corp, and Lendlease. After almost 20 years of hiding her spirituality while climbing the corporate ladder and playing down her money wisdom in the spiritual world, she now integrates her masculine and feminine energy to create a life of joy, freedom, and abundance. With deep wisdom, a loving heart, and a treasure trove of spiritual and financial tools, she supports her clients to create an abundant relationship with money and with themselves. She strongly believes that people who feel abundant in their lives financially and otherwise have the power to change the world. And I love this line from her bio on the website, where one of my greatest learnings in recent years is that pieces of paper cannot capture the full richness of lived experience. But that said, qualifications can and do hold an important place. So here are some of hers: Bachelor of Business in Accounting and Finance, Graduate Diploma of Chartered Accounting, internationally accredited and award-winning coach, and Certificate 4 in Training and Assessment. So I was telling Tara earlier that when I first heard her speak on another podcast, I recorded her details in the hope that one day she would run a workshop at Creator's Nest, my commercial space, which I still had at the time and had no plans to close. But then it dawned on me a few weeks ago after closing it that I could still have her wisdom shared with my audience through the podcast instead. So I reached out to her, and here we are. So welcome, Tara, to Business to Your Own Beat, the podcast, and thank you so much for making time to be here and share parts of your lived experience with us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Marie-Nicole. This is so exciting to be here today.
I'm so glad you are. So can you share with us a bit of your background story, how you started your business and the connection between spirituality and finances?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I have a 20-year history in the corporate accounting world, and that was really born of my good girl and people-pleasing era, where I went into a career that would make my parents proud and that would look successful to the outside world, because that's what I was told was success. And I was in that career and had like a sneaky spiritual side that I didn't show in the corporate world, because it would be, a very career limiting move to do that. I'm also highly intuitive and I read tarot cards. So there were lots of like whispered conversations about tarot readings, and I'm just naturally a person that holds space for people. So I would always have conversations with my colleagues about the big stuff going on in their lives. But there came a point when I was probably at the height of my career, and I was working at the European head office of a global investment bank, and I just had this moment, which I remember so clearly, where I looked around and saw all these people who earned just loads of money. They had all the trappings of success that we're all told, the luxury cars and the holiday homes and private education for the kids and everything. And I looked around and it struck me that I couldn't really see anyone that looked that happy with their lives. And I knew that that was a trajectory I was on, and it kind of made me take a pause and realise that all the things that I was aiming for to create happiness in my own life may in fact not end with happiness. And so I went on a little bit of a spiritual path, went seeking where I could find happiness in other ways, and that led me into doing things like yoga and meditation and reconnecting with my soul, which was so beautiful and is still very much a part of my life. But one thing that I did notice when I was in these beautiful, soulful circles of people is that I noticed a lot of people had issues with money, but they didn't, a lot of them didn't have the money that they wanted to live the lives that they wanted to, or there was like a disdain for money or a distaste around it, and almost like in some instances a low-key hatred of money, which I can completely understand, like completely. The capitalism has done us over in many ways, and so I continued to live a little bit of a double life. And in the corporate world, I kept my spiritual self hidden. And in the spiritual world, I kept the fact that I was good with money hidden, because I didn't want to be judged as like a greedy, materialistic person. And so it took me a while to bring the two together in my own life.
Yeah, so that transition that you made from being living your two lives, what did that look like? And then bringing it together and starting your business.
So it wasn't a clean, neat, linear path like I think for most of us. It was messy in many respects, and there was a series of smaller kind of spiritual awakenings, I would call them, where along the way I had 3 children, and had them quite close together, had them in 4 years, and as much of a blessing as that was, and I know how blessed I am to be able to have kids, it really threw my perfectionist good girl tendencies out the window, because I really couldn't maintain the controlled life that I had. And so I kind of just slowly started unraveling from what I thought I was aiming for. And there was like a lot of messy middle liminal space where I was just kind of going through the motions. And then I'd say a period of about 5 years, I just started winding back from things that I thought I had to do but weren't making me happy, and slowly introducing things that did bring me joy. And quite often they were just simple, joyful abundance, just spending more time in nature, connecting on a more real level with people, taking off the mask of perfection. And over that time, just really getting back in touch with my intuition and following intuitive signs. And that actually led me to listening to a podcast one day, which was Julie Parker, the founder of Beautiful You Life Coaching Academy, was being guest interviewed on a podcast. And I remember listening to her speaking about life coaching. And I was just walking around my neighbourhood and I had to stop in my tracks. And I had, full body goosebumps. and time and space stopped. It was like frozen in space. And for me, that's a really strong sign from my intuition that this is a direction I need to go in. And so it took me a while because my logical mind kept coming up with all the reasons why I shouldn't do it. But I eventually did the Beautiful You Coaching Academy life coaching course, and that led me to stepping into life coaching. And at the time, having had the 20 years of corporate career behind me, it felt really, really scary, uncertain. I was worried about how people would judge me, how it would look. But I tried not to put pressure on myself to make a career out of it, actually. I just thought, I'm going to do this for the personal growth, the self-development. Coaching when you've got 3 kids is never a bad skill to have. And so I kind of started stepping into it in that way. But if I'm truly honest, deep down in my heart, it's what I really, really wanted to do. It's what I wanted to create a business around, and it's who I really feel I am, deep down is I'm meant to be a coach.
So how long did it take you to go from being full-time in your corporate career to then actually full-time in your coaching?
So I was part-time in my work at the time in the corporate world because I had the 3 kids who were very young. And I then, good question. I did the course, and I probably, beyond doing the course, was probably another 6 months of doing both things side by side. And lots of, burning the midnight oil, trying to get a business up and running, trying to keep my foot in keep doing my job properly, and bringing up my kids. And so it was, probably 6 months later that I had a really raw and honest conversation with my husband and said, look, I really feel like it's time to jump, and I'm really scared, but I feel like this is what I'm meant to be doing. Can we do this? And I was very lucky to have his support in that. And, although he was probably really uncertain and very nervous about it too, we agreed for me to give it 6 months to give it a go. And I have to say, at the end of the 6 months, I was like, can I please have another 6 months? Because, look, I'm sure anyone who's ever had a business knows this. I remember being told this by people, but I didn't 100% clearly. I didn't 100% believe it until I walked it myself. Building a business is really hard work, and there can be a long period of time where you're putting in lots of energy and you're not seeing the results in terms of, financially seeing the dollars rolling in, because there's a lot of building to do and a lot of, all the things like the website and the socials and the connections, and just understanding who you're here to, serve and what you're meant to be doing. And so it felt like a real risk, and being really connected to my why during that time was the most important and fundamental thing that I could do, because unlike my previous life, there was no money connected to the work I was doing in the beginning.
Yeah, and no job description really. You make that up as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on the business thing too, is that quite often in business, like your income does, even once you're established, your income can go up and down every month, like depending on economic conditions and what's happening with you and all sorts of things. And I noticed that my sense of self, my sense of my self-worth, validation, that was starting to track up and down with the business income too. And part of my healing around money was to separate myself from that and to really connect in with my self-worth and really self-love, totally unattached from money, because capitalism would have us believe that our worth is how much we own or how much we earn. And I absolutely absorbed that messaging very clearly. And so it took walking that path of having little to nothing coming in to really understand that that was a lot of my patterning as well.
Yeah, yeah. And your worth is not based on your monetary value. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So before you actually started working with clients in the money area, so you went into life coaching, but you weren't necessarily focusing on finances in that. So is that right?
Yeah, I was doing money and spirituality alongside each other, which would have been potentially confusing. But in the beginning, I was just kind of, I guess it was very generic or general in terms of like just reconnecting people with their soul and what they want to do and what would make them happy. But as I kept practicing and kept doing the work, I noticed a clear pattern coming through of people feeling that they either had to choose money or choose their soul. And I saw that this was like quite a strong theme in other people, but also in myself. And that's when I started looking at how to weave the two together.
Yeah, beautiful. So I have a question for you, which is not about struggle, but what came to you effortlessly that surprised you along the journey of starting your own business?
I think it's the connecting with other people, connecting with humans on a very real level, not seeing people as potential sales, dollars or clients, but just really wanting to connect with people. And the byproduct of that has been that it's fed beautifully into creating really aligned business, but that was never my intention and is still not when it comes to human connection. Like that is so soul nourishing for me to have honest, deep conversations with people. It's who I really am. And so having had a career where I felt like I had to work really, really hard in the corporate world to be successful, now I find that I just get to use my natural gifts and abilities and who I really am, and that gets to be enough. Like the work can be easeful.
So you're attracting your clients. Does that feel like that's just through being yourself rather than selling yourself to people?
Yeah, I think mostly, like for me, I'm not I'm not like really big. Like I'm on social media and I absolutely use that as a beautiful tool, but I'm not like a really hardcore sales type person. I'm much more like, I know personally that I like to, when I've hired coaches or worked personally with anyone, I've really needed to get to know them a little bit before I've started working with them. There's a degree of safety and comfort that gives me. And so, I feel like just being myself and being open to conversation and putting myself into groups and spaces where that conversation is encouraged and allowed, it really has been a beautiful tool for business growth too.
That's lovely. So have there been obstacles in finding your clients, or do you feel like it's just kind of, it's all flowing towards me now?
No, there's definitely been obstacles. Like I never ever want to give the glossy version and not the real one. Yeah, look, I think the main obstacle for me originally was getting clear on who I was here to serve, because I did have the money element. So I would often speak about money stories, money blocks, money mindset, our relationship with money and all that kind of thing. And in the back of my head, I was terrified of being judged as being unspiritual because I talked about money so much. And then I would also speak about spiritual things and around a sacred circle and talk a lot about soulful things, publicly. And I always had in the back of my head that I would be judged as being unprofessional and a weirdo. And so it felt really hard in that way to attract my clients because I wasn't really clear who I was speaking to. And so no one else probably was quite clear on that I was speaking to them. And I had to heal that within me and to really noticed how in my own life I've used like how money elevates, you know, my soul's experience of this life on earth, and how my spirituality really can elevate my level of feeling abundant internally. Like spirituality to me is feeling rich on the inside, and money is feeling rich on the outside, and how actually those two are so related and intertwined, much more than I think most of us realise. And once I got really clear on that internally for myself and started speaking out to it, that's when clients started to be really clear on whether I was able to serve them or not. But it took a lot of, also, like, when you're selling a service, it feels like you are selling you, and that can feel really icky, because, like, I mean, first of all, we've been conditioned not to blow our own trumpets too much, right? And not be too big for our boots, and not be like all those things that we're probably conditioned into it as little kids. But also, I've had to learn to, like, consider myself the bridge between the service that I'm providing and the clients that could really benefit from that service, rather than me seeing myself as selling me. I'm selling something that I believe can truly be of service. But yeah, there's been so many learnings along the way. I think business has been my biggest tool for self-development and personal growth, just in all the edges I've had to meet around marketing and sales and money as well. Even though, like, I may be more comfortable with money than the average person, I still meet many edges in business around that too. So yeah, it's definitely not been plain sailing. It's still not plain sailing, but I see each thing as an opportunity to lean into growth.
Beautiful. Now, previously you, before we were recording, talking about setting your pricing and how that felt. Can you speak to that a little bit more for people who are starting out and feel like they just asking to be paid for something that they would do anyway is often an obstacle, where they go, oh, but I talk to people and help them, so how can I charge them? So how did you go about setting your pricing and getting over that?
I love this question so much, because in it, there's an assumption that we have to work really, really hard for money, which is one of my money blocks, right? Like, if something comes easily and naturally and we would do it anyway, that we shouldn't charge for it. And that's definitely something that I would love to challenge and support people through. But for me personally, I absolutely had that, because I was that person that people talk to. Like, even as a kid in the playground, I was always like the wise old soul, the mini old lady sitting in the playground counselling people through things. And so, setting prices is a very personal way to come, like, money becomes front and centre, because you feel like you're putting a value on you. And there really can be this idea I'm sure in many industries, but coaching industry certainly, is that the more successful you are and the further along the path you are, that the more you should charge, and that if your prices aren't super high, then your money mindset's wrong, or you're not successful enough. And I am in the very privileged and fortunate position that I'm financially free. I don't need to work. It's something I've cultivated and created, and part of that is knowing how much is enough. I live a very simple life, to be honest, and so in my pricing, I wanted to make sure that I separated myself from any feelings of, like, the price reflects value or anything about me personally, but instead was more a reflection of just the energy exchange, and making sure that it was it was nourishing and sustainable for me as it was for my clients. And so I don't buy into the really high prices mean that the coaching or the service is any more valuable. And I like to set mine at a level that it would absolutely be, I'm not kidding myself that it's accessible to everybody. Like I understand that particularly in these economic times that like there are a lot of people that are really, suffering. But I try and set it at a level that's not beyond most people and build in payment plans and all sorts of things. But I think it's really important not to get caught up in that narrative of your prices reflect your value as a human, the value of the service you're offering, or the value of anything that you buy, like anything in the world. Value does not equate to dollars. Like prices are a completely made up thing and money is a completely made up thing. And so I think we're all doing ourselves a disservice if we're like racing to the top with prices to prove how valuable we or our services are.
And I agree with that completely. And our circumstances are all different too. Like I think of moving from Sydney to the country and thinking the country would be cheaper to live in and electricity was higher. We have to travel more. I mean, electricity is high because there's not as many houses using the grid that's been put in. So we pay more for the electricity out here. And then on top of that, you've got to spend more on actually getting to where you want to go and everything you have to drive to. And so it's like when you look at cost of living, yeah, the house might be cheaper, but the actual day-to-day runnings is not cheaper. So you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, because you're in the country, it's going to cost me less to use you than someone in the city.
Yeah.
There's a whole range of factors that I don't think people consider when it comes to setting your prices. It's not just, yep, that's an industry standard. No, there's more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's like so much work to be done, even in that tiny decision of setting your prices. And, when you feel like it might be time to increase your prices and that like feeling of nausea you get and thinking, oh my God, like you're feeling really vulnerable to judgment or attack, usually from yourself more than anybody else. But I, particularly in like I would consider myself an empath and an intuitive, and we can quite often be overgivers and be really highly attuned with other people's emotions and almost identify with the way other people are feeling more than we are feeling in many instances, and it can cause blurry boundaries around pricing as well, and giving really unsustainably and not being able to support yourself and your nervous system and all that kind of thing. So, gosh, just pricing itself is the biggest self-development edge, but also, yeah, there's so many topics within that to dive into as well.
Absolutely. So with the clients you work with, is there a pattern that you see that's a common pattern people struggle with, I guess, is probably a pattern of behaviour, a pattern of thinking? Do you find that there is kind of a common thread that runs through? And if so, do you have any advice on how to overcome that one common pattern that you see?
Oh, okay. I love this question. And there are absolutely common patterns. There are also really unique things to each person and their lived experience and their ancestry and that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of the most common pattern I see. I think the overall overarching pattern here is that a lot of people feel like they have to choose money or soul. And even if you don't think that on a conscious level, I think subconsciously a lot of people do think, okay, I'm going to go for the really, really high-paying job or the well-paying job that is absolutely soul-sucking and I hate it. Or I'm going to go into a business or a career that I really love, that really speaks to who I am, that really is what I'm here to do, but I can't make any money out of it. And I think they're the big patterns I see. And within the more soulful, spiritually minded community, I think there's a level of feeling like if I am abundant, if I have money flowing into my business, it's going to hurt somebody else on another level. Like it's almost like feeling guilty for charging clients money because if I gain, you must lose out. And the idea that I'd love to offer here is I think the way our brains interpret money is like a pie, pie diagram. My brain thinks in charts and graphs because of the accounting background. But we think there's this limited pie, and we each get a piece of the pie. And so, my piece of the pie might be bigger than your piece of the pie, and in terms of money, and that creates a level of scarcity, like an idea that we're in competition, that if I get more, then by definition you get less. And that's, when people talk about scarcity mindset, it really is about that. You've got to fight to keep your patch and compete with everybody else. Whereas if you really think about the way money works on a really, really basic level, there's no finite amount of money. It's actually always flowing around. And so if I spend $100, going to the florist and buying, a beautiful bunch of flowers, the florist is then going to use that money, yes, to pay their suppliers, but also the profit is going to be used to, take their family out for dinner maybe one night. And then the restaurateur is going to use their profit to buy some beautiful candles for their house or whatever it is. But that money, the same $100 note, theoretically could circulate through unlimited pairs of hands, and in each pair of hands it can bring meaning or joy or comfort or pleasure or connection or whatever that pair of hands uses that money for. And I think when you start seeing money as something that's in eternal flow, and you kind of zoom out from that scarcity mindset and tap more into the abundance mindset. And you also, if you're a really big-hearted, kind human that cannot bear the thought of thriving at somebody else's expense, you can see that you're not thriving at somebody else's expense, that the money is flowing into your hands, but also when you spend it in ways that feel really aligned with you and really speak to your values, then you're flowing it in beautiful ways too. And that, in fact, the more money that circulates through your hands as a, soulful, aware, conscious person, the more you can contribute to that on earth, really, because you're circulating it in ways that are aligned with you. And it takes away that feeling of selfishness and greed, and I'm taking away from other people. So I think that idea there has been something that's really supported a lot of my more soulful and spiritually minded clients to really step away from that idea of I cannot thrive without somebody else losing out.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me think of a quote from when I was doing my coaching certification and on money, talking about how money in your hands makes the world a better place because of the choices that we make as sole purpose-based people. We're actually going to fund other people that are engaged in their sole purpose, and they're usually doing things for the good of the collective. It's not a selfish way of operating with money. So yeah, we need more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. So I have a question about you personally now, with your daily practices and maintaining your own health and well-being. What is it you do on a daily basis, especially now that you work for yourself and you are the face of your business, and without keeping your health and well-being, it doesn't exist and you can't support your clients?
Yeah, look, I've learnt the hard way. I have to say, having your own business means it can be often a lot harder to switch off at the end of the day, if possible. And I'm someone that I like being a night owl, but I have found myself very prone to putting 100% into my business and putting 100% into my kids, and we all know that the maths doesn't work there. And now, especially as I get older, I realize that my body tells me when it has been probably not had the break, not had the love and the care that it's needed. And so I'm much more conscious of calling on my spiritual practices now, and I try to get out for a walk most days if I can, just almost like a walking meditation, because I don't always have time for meditation in my day, or it feels like I don't have enough time. And so, a walk. Before I start my work every day, I do pull journal cards and just give it, I guess it is a meditation, but it's a quiet prayer of gratitude that I get to do this work, and asking that whatever wants to come through me to serve today, may it come through me. And the oracle cards are nice to keep me just in tune with myself, and maybe messages that might be supportive for me to hear today. I have my office space here is in the garden, and I find that just even between client calls, like walking barefoot on the grass grounds me, and just, nature is my medicine. I quickly notice if I haven't been getting my nature fix, I start to get quite antsy, and I'm no good really as either a business owner or a coach or a mum. It all kind of starts getting a bit wobbly, and so I get out into nature as often as I can. But ultimately, it's not. I don't believe in balance every day. I think it's impossible as someone who's balancing children and work and myself. And so I just learned to lean into, over periods of time, whether it's, just for today or for this week or this month, whether I need to lean into supporting my kids more, or whether I need to lean into supporting myself more, or lean into growing my business. Or it feels like a constant dance that I have to, just keep an eye on and look after myself.
It sounds like finding your flow, like the water going down the river and just, weaving its way through rocks. It's not trying to push it all in one go. It's just like find the flow.
Yeah, absolutely. It does feel like that. And I don't always get it right. I quickly find out if I haven't gotten it right. But it's life, isn't it? And then you can get thrown a curveball and you've got to figure your way through that. And so I think that flexibility is absolutely essential as a business owner.
Oh, absolutely. Just in life in general, right?
Yeah.
So you have a program coming up, which is called Freedom, and it's that 6-week immersion program. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that and what it involves, and how people can find out how to join you on that journey?
Thank you. Yes, I'm so excited about it. It is coming back again. I do it once a year. It's going to start up in early August, and the details will be on my website shortly in the next week or two. And it's a 6-week immersion where we have weekly coaching calls, and it's a really small group program, which I really, really love, no more than 6 people, because I really think there is so much value in just going deep on our money stories and speaking out where, from the day we were born, really, and even beyond that, our ancestry, about where our money stories may have come from. And the first 3 weeks is really about unwinding, identifying patterns, seeing where we might be sabotaging ourselves or falling into unconscious patterns around money, and starting to replace those stories, give our brains evidence that other things are possible, and start just unwinding from our blocks. And then the second half of the program is manifesting and working with the energy of money, and really using our internal riches to manifest external riches. And I often find in the spiritual world that people can jump straight to the manifesting bit, and I think that does everybody a disservice, because we can't see how we're getting in our own way and blocking energy and blocking our manifestations. And so I love to do that. And then for each of the 6 weeks, there's a video masterclass and a self-inquiry workbook that comes out just to help to shift those patterns. But yeah, it's a very immersive program, but people come out the other end with a completely different relationship with money, which is exactly why I do it, and I love it so much.
That's fantastic. Well, I'll share a link to your website in the show notes for sure, so people can jump on board with that. So you only offer this once a year?
Yeah, I only offer it once a year. I do work one-to-one with people, and I'm actually at the moment trialing delivering that course content on a one-to-one basis with people so that who want individual coaching. But as a group program, it runs once a year.
Fantastic. And that there's benefit to that too, because then you see other people going through the journey alongside of you and learn through their experience as well.
Yeah, I actually think group coaching can be more valuable than one-to-one coaching quite often, and particularly when it comes to money. It's so incredibly healing to hear other people's stories of how they've grown up around money, because quite often they can speak to something that you've experienced but you haven't been able to quite name or articulate, or it's just really liberating to talk about money because we don't talk about it. And look, some dollar figures are dropped in there, like, and there's no pressure to, but sometimes I'll ask the question, or questions like, what's the maximum money that you feel comfortable having in your bank account, or that you've ever had in your bank account? And people will speak out like, oh, look, I've noticed that when I hit $3,000 that I start sabotaging it and spending it on things I don't really want or need, and I hit an upper limit there. And other people might hit that same limit at a different dollar value, but they recognise the pattern in themselves. And so there's something really, really healing about doing it together in a group.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Wow, amazing. I'll hopefully join you there.
I'd love to have you.
So I wanted to know if there's anything else that you feel called to share today that you think is important, that you intuitively have felt that we need to hear, or the audience needs to hear.
Okay, so what's coming through right now is a lot of love and calling you into self-compassion for yourself. And I often say, you didn't skip school the day they taught everybody else about money, they just never taught it. And so what I would love for everybody to know is there is nothing broken, there is nothing wrong with you. The shame and guilt and all the layers that you have around money are not yours to carry, because you were never taught how to relate to money in a healthy way. And so just an invitation here to shine a lot of love and self-compassion on you as you go through this journey of unlearning all the things about money and relearning a new way.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much again for your time, Tara, and for sharing your insights. And I look forward to seeing what comes of your course and the people that actually join it. And if they join from here, please let us know that you found Tara through Business to Your Own Beat, and also leave a comment or a review, or reach out to Tara and I if there's anything that you heard today that just really touched you where you needed to hear it. So you can either share a post and tag us in, or DM us, because it is really encouraging to hear that what we share is actually of value to you, for both of us. And we're obviously both very passionate about helping people. So yeah, any key takeaways, be sure to share it with us, because we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, thank you, Tara. I'm really pleased we were able to connect and we're able to share this with my audience and soon to be your audience too. So
thank you so much, Marie-Nicole. It's been such a joy to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your time. I know how valuable it is, and I hope you got value out of listening to this podcast. If you are looking for a coach to support and guide you through your own unique journey of creating a life you love, then reach out for a connection call. And if you'd like to connect with other creative souls in person by joining us at a workshop, a retreat, or to book a unique shopping experience here at Creators Nest, I run those by appointment. So check out the website for more details. The link is in the show notes. Oh, and please leave a review. I'd love to hear any insights or inspirations that were activated in you from this podcast. And I look forward to drumming, dancing, or soaring alongside of you.